Alright, as promised, this is the third installment in our DMR video series. This is going to be programming a MD380, TYT MD380 for use on DMR. Okay, so I'm not going to go through installing the software. You should be able to get the software and install it yourself. What I am going to go through is what you're going to see once the software is installed. So once the software is installed, you're going to be looking for this icon right here, the CPS MD380, and the current version I'm using is 1.32. It is also, if you go to your start button down here and go to all programs, you should find it in your TYT folder, and right here it is as well. So you can launch it from either the icon there or here in the program. When you launch, it's going to ask you if you want to open. I'm going to tell you yeah. If you launch it from the other one, it doesn't normally do that. This is what you come up to, first and foremost. This is the interface for programming. Now, depending on what version your MD380 is, you would select right here. Or some of you guys that have worked with commercial Kenwood stuff would know you can do a read of the radio, and it will pull any basic, any information that's on the radio over. Now, one term we didn't talk about in the previous video was code plug. Code plug is just a fancy way of saying what you've got programmed into the radio. You may hear people say, oh, I need a new code plug for my radio. It's basically the programming of the zones, the channels, and the contacts or top groups, okay? So we're going to start. I'm going to walk you through how I program a DMR radio. You may not program the same way I do, but this is how I program, okay? So one of the very first things is you're going to need to name your radio, whatever you want to name it, and you're going to need to put your radio ID in. Now, radio ID, you're going to get that from signing up at the DMARC for a DMARC or a Brandmaster, whichever network you're going to operate on. You're going to wind up getting a DMR ID. Okay, so for instance, I'm in Kentucky, and my ID will start with 3121, and then it's going to have another series of numbers behind it. And that is your subscriber ID. That's what's going to let you onto the system, and it's going to show up when you're talking on other users' radios if they have a display. Okay. In this screen, the only other thing that I would say that I would make sure to put in here, if you wanted to lock it in to where you had to have a password to program via the PC, you could do that here. You can program these radios from the front panel. I wouldn't recommend it stock out of the box, but I would recommend if you get the MD380 tools that we'll talk about later when we get on the Raspberry Pi, and hotspot and program. It's another firmware you can put onto this radio. I would recommend putting in the front program password. I like to disable all tones, alert tones and stuff on my radio, because may just be me, I'm new, and there were some tones that I didn't understand what was going on. I did try to do some research. They didn't affect me being able to talk, but they were annoying, so I disabled tones, and I saw other people do this exact same thing. There's really nothing that we need to look at under menu items, unless you want to be able to program the radio from front panel. If you do, you're just going to put a checkbox here. Okay. Didn't really do nothing with buttons or text message or privacy system. Nothing under the digit emergency system. So the first place we're really going to, the second thing after you've got your radio ID in and you've named your radio, we're going to start with digital contacts. Now, a contact is just, TYT calls it a contact. I taught you it's a top group. That's what it is, okay? So let's say I want to add in the nationwide top group. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it USA. All right, and I want it to be a group call. You can do both, but group calls is what you want to do for top groups, okay? Remember, a group call is like a top group is a one-to-many, so that's why we want to leave it as a group. Now, if you remember from the video, that contact is 3100 is the name of the top group, okay? And I'm going to hit add. Now that's there. So let's say I also want to add in the Kentucky statewide top group. So I'm going to put in Kentucky statewide. If I could type, I would. And I believe there may be a limit on how many characters you can put in here, okay? So I'm going to leave it as a group call, and that top group is 3121. And don't worry if you don't know what all these top group numbers are. In a future video where I'm going to give you a rundown of all the top groups that are available on the Brandmaster Network, which is what I'm working off of. Okay, now I've put my two top groups in. All right. Now, I want to come down and I want to make a zone. The TYT starts out with a zone already programmed, and you can name this zone whatever you want to. So let's say I'm just going to call this zone Kentucky. Okay. I'm just going to leave that window up because I've renamed it, and you'll notice it's changed over here. Now I need to program a channel. And if I want to add a new channel, I can just click there here, right click, and go to add. It's already got one channel, but we're going to leave it. Now, this is the programming interface for the TYT. I can make a choice here. I can do a digital channel or an analog channel. It will default to digital. If I go to analog, you'll notice this area down here becomes available. And I want to change it right here to 25 kilohertz if it's an analog channel. But we're talking about digital, so I'm going to do digital. You'll notice this all gets grayed out down here again. Okay. Now I'm going to name this channel. The first one we'll name USA. I would put my transmit and receive frequencies in here. So let's just, these are not actual frequencies of a repeater. This is just me throwing something in. Okay. Now I've got my frequencies in. It's a digital channel. I'm going to come over. I'm going to select a contact. I'm doing the USA, so I'm going to select, if you remember, we made the contacts a minute ago. I'm going to do USA contact. Alright, if you remember, we talked about color codes. And we said that color codes are like PLs, and every channel must have a color code set. You can't get by with not setting a color code. For this one, let's just say we're going to stick 2 in. And this is, you would get this from the repeater owner. And let's say he's got this on time slot 1 or 2. We can choose. But let's say for some reason, let's say he's going to leave it on time slot 1. Okay? Alright. I can also set the power of the channel as low or high here. And that's it. That channel is now programmed. So let's go through and let's do another channel. So let's go ahead and get our Kentucky channel in. We're going to leave it as digital. We're going to name it right here again to Kentucky. Let's say this is another one that he put, that the repeater owner has made available to us on the repeater. We'll put our area in there. We're going to come over again. We're going to select a contact. We're going to go to statewide. We're going to set the color code again. So let's say it's 2 this time. And this is, if we remember our pyramid from the previous video, since this is statewide, it's going to be on time slot 2, okay? If they're keeping with the rules. Once again, we could set our power right here again if we wanted to, okay? So now we've made 2 channels. If you look over here, we'll see our 2 channels over here. Here's the USA channel and here's the Kentucky channel. Now let's go back to our zone information. Notice USA is already in here because if you remember originally it showed channel 1. But now I want to add the Kentucky over here. So now I'm going to add Kentucky in. Alright. Now I have successfully built a zone. I've made my contacts. And this is the way I would tell you to do this. Build your contacts first. And all that is your talk groups. Go down then and build your channels. And then go in and add your channels to a zone. Okay? So let's walk through one more. Let's say we want to add, okay? So we're going to add worldwide English only. If you remember from our previous video, that should be talk group 93. Alright, we've added it. We're going to come down, we're going to right click, we're going to make a new channel. We're going to click in here. We're going to name that channel Worldwide English. We're going to put our frequency in. We're going to set our color code. And then we're going to set a time slot. Take a minute and think back to the video. Which time slot would a worldwide frequency be, or worldwide talk group be in? That's right, it would be in color. It would be in repeater slot 1. Okay. I may have said color code, but what I meant was repeater slot. Is what repeater slot would it be in? So it's going to be in repeater slot 1. All right. Now, after we've made our contact, we've programmed the channel. Now let's go to the zone. And let's add this here. Now, let's say, for instance, that is now ready to go. And I would come up here, if I had my cable plugged into the computer and my radio connected, I would come up here and I would click the right button, okay? And all this would be written to the radio, and then it would reboot and be ready to use. Now, I told you zones were a little bit confusing, so let me show you. I can make a new zone the same way I made a new channel. I can right click on zone information, add, come right here, and I can add a new zone. So let's say, for instance, I just want to name this zone Worldwide. And all I want in here is the Worldwide English channel. I don't have to go back and reprogram the channel each time or anything like that. I can just, the channel is there. The channel is programmed. Now I'm just building zones. And like I told you, they're just a logical grouping of channels. And on the radio, when we watch the video on the actual radio, you'll see that all zones are doing is just allowing you to have certain channels active and going at the time, whatever zone you're operating out of. Okay. So this has been a quick rundown on how to program the MD380, and I'm going to walk you through one more. We're going to get back to a fresh screen, and then I'll let you go after that. So starting out, if you came in, you would just read your radio if you already got programming. If not, let's say you want to add a new contact, you would come into the digital contacts area, click the add button. Come in here, type what you want. Let's say I want to add Texas statewide. I would click over here. Their top group is 3148. Keep in mind, these are statewide talk groups, so they're going to activate all of the DMR repeaters in the state. Whoops, I clicked the wrong one there. You always want to use tab when you're done entering something in there. Now I need to add a new channel. I add the channel. I'm going to name it Texas statewide. I'm going to put in a frequency. This would be the frequency of the repeater that this talk group is available to me on. And when we talk about the hotspot, after a while, the frequency and transmit will be the same on every channel, and it'll be a simplex frequency for the hotspot. But if you're going to the repeater, and I just caught myself, you're going to have your standard offset of 5 megahertz. Alright, I'm going to pick me a contact name, Brad in Texas. I'm going to set my color code, and then I'm going to set my repeater slot. This is a statewide, so we're going to do 2. Okay. Alright. Now, let's say I want to add that to another zone. Maybe I just want a zone for Texas. I'm traveling to Texas, and I want just a zone for Texas. I can name that new zone and just add that channel. And channels can be in multiple zones, so maybe I want to also add the USA channel that was on Talk Group 3100. So I now got 3 zones. I've got all these channels built, 4 channels down here. And that is pretty much programming a TYT MD380 on the next. Just a few more things before we close the video out. Remember that the color code and the repeater slot, you're going to get that information. If you're going through a repeater, you're going to get that information from the repeater owner. The repeater owner is going to set that. If you're using a hotspot, this is the color code you're going to get to set yourself. But the repeater slot, more than likely, is always going to be 2, especially if you're using a DV Mega like I am. It's a limitation of the board. Okay. We also talked about we could put analog channels in. And to do that, right now you notice that it's grayed out down here where it says analog data. You would just come up here, change this drop down to analog, switch this to 25 kilohertz if it is truly a wideband repeater. If it is a narrow band, you could leave it on 12.5. You'll notice down here we've got the ability to add a PL. The CTCS and the DCS PLs are all here. Okay, so this will be our decode side for receive. This will be our encode side for transmit. The frequency still goes in right here. Okay. All right. On the talk groups or contacts, the contact name you can make whatever you want. You always want it to be set to a group call, with the exception of a few applications we'll talk about later in another video. Most repeater owners are not allowed private calls. What a private call is that would be me keying up my radio through the repeater to talk to another subscriber, and instead of talking to this talk group, for instance, on 3121, I would put that subscriber's ID right here. And we would tie up the repeater resources, and you wouldn't be able to hear us, and we'd also be tying up that time slot, okay? So most repeater owners are not allowing that. The big thing I want to stress is that these call IDs have to match whatever is in the repeater, and the repeater owner is going to match those to whatever network he's operating off of. So if he or she's operating off Brandmaster, these are going to be the IDs that are going to be in there. And remember, the repeater owner gets to choose what talk groups they want to carry. All right. If you're using a hotspot, you can put whatever talk groups you want in there. All right. Same thing holds true on the channels. I can name the channel whatever I want it to be. Okay. So whatever makes sense to me, I can make that naming. On the zones, I can make these zone names whatever I want them to be. And that's pretty much wraps it up for as far as programming a TYT MD380. I hope you've enjoyed the first 3 videos. I hope you're looking forward to number 4 coming out. In the 4th video, we're actually going to use the MD380 with a hotspot. We're going to try to make some contacts. And we're going to talk about features on the radio and how you switch between zones and some other options on the radio. So once again, this is KY4 RDB Roland Brown. I'm going to end the video, and we'll catch you on the next one.